quickly regarding the interpreter training program. There are students that are graduating and they are running off to other states and interpreting. So is there a way we can develop some kind of, marketing plan for these programs that have interpreter training programs in our state? So that how can we improve the marketability of working in the state after graduation? So that there's not a gap with graduation to working. So that these individuals come here, they get educated here, they stay here, they work here. So that we can do some sort of marketing once we have that plan in place.
I agree with your comment, Tom. Pam and I have been having conversations too, how ODHH can work with UWM, and that can be part of our ongoing conversation. So Pam already has it in her crosshairs as part of her curriculum. And really, we want to cherish the talent that we grow here. We don't want them kind of absconding to other destinations. We don't want them to go down from brain drain too. Meaning that we have people with good degrees, good skills, good experience. We want them to stay here and work. We don't want them to be like, oh, I'm graduated, peace out, I'm leaving. Going to Dallas, going to Houston, going to New York, going to California, where there's more opportunities. We want them to keep here in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Okay, Cookie?
Hi, this is Cookie. My question is in regards to evaluation and the BEI. I'm not clear on a statement that happened before. Can you tell us your vision of how you pick raters? And can anyone in the community apply to be a BEI rater? Is that possible?
Okay, in answer to your first question, BEI is a program from Texas. They will come here and train the raters. And the people who are providing the training must have taken the BEI themselves and passed it. But initially, people from Texas will come up here to train, and then the raters for Wisconsin evaluations will go out to Illinois and other states before we actually have our rater pool established here. Once we have enough in our pool that have the BEI credential, then we can start looking at using raters more homegrown.
Okay.
That will be communicated to you after everything is, kind of hits the ground running. We'll know more formally what the timeline looks like, what's coming down the pipeline when. And the Texas BEI is currently the national model right now. A lot of states are really looking at Texas and really impressed with their model. So it's spreading like wildfire across the nation. So Wisconsin could be the next one in the list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Katie Voss, and then over here, and then over there.
This is Katie. So the revenue taken from the WITA tests that have been taken, what happens to that money? Is it profited back into ODHH, or does it just sit there in a fund? What does that look like?
Right. It's not profit, it goes right back into the system. When you take your WITA, you pay $225 to take it. That goes for administrative expenses. Pays the evaluators, pays for the equipment, pays for everything involved in the test administering process. We have that line by line. I don't have specifics with me right now, but I can get that information to you.
One moment. And Katie just said, you know, what the balance was of that money that was left that would be returned and used or piloted for the BEI.
I just want to clarify that with the financial aspects, our intent is to not to increase or impose additional costs on test takers. I know there may be some, you know, small nominal fees that go up as part of inflation, but our goal is not to just drive up the cost extensively. But I will be able to break down that information too. It'll be a self-sustaining program. We have supporting from the administration to keep backing it now, so it'll be on a continuous cycle, and it'll become a self-sustaining program with extra financial support as needed.
We're gonna ask the whole question so Dan can finish his presentation. Mike asked if he could be excused. Yes, you may.
Am I on letter C, Pam? Is that correct? Oh, okay. Just for your information, and this is important, ODHH received from DSPS a list of active interpreters and interpreters that are no longer active or are inactive status. So we got the list from them. In terms of providing an explanation as to why they may be inactive, we have no idea. The numbers do change, of course, because of the system now, but we do have those names. Can you scroll up, Pam?
There's the, that's it. That's
The bottom line here, to speak to the inactive or the restricted license, people who haven't gotten their national certification in the time allocated, they will run out of opportunities to renew. So obviously we want to encourage these interpreters affected to work towards national certification, but beyond that, that's the bottom line. That's what this means.
Can you, I just want to finish.
Yeah, just finish and then we'll give the last 5 minutes for questions.
Your attention, please. Medical emergency, first response, clinic, first, or
There are some interpreters who have a DPI license that do not have a DSPS license. We know that that is restrictive to working in an educational setting. But it is law that any interpreter that receives compensation for their service must be licensed in Wisconsin for DSPS. That is our working relationship, that is the expectation, that is what the law states. ITP students, if they're volunteering as part of fieldwork experiences, they may not receive compensation It's not a loophole, but it's for enrichment, educational purposes, part of the curriculum at these different ITPs that they get this fieldwork experience, so we wouldn't call that a
So-
loophole, but I'm gonna turn it over to Pam, who can speak to this better than I can.
I'll speak about that. Hold on to ITP. I think the question is asking, I don't have my DSPS license, and I go work for a doctor and I get paid for it. Because I don't even have a license, what penalties, what can happen to me? Can anything happen to me? And I'm guessing it's no, because the law is ambiguous in that regard, that there's nothing about what to do with someone that doesn't have a license. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So any interpreter who has a license can receive payment for interpreting services. Let's say, and this has happened, we know, we did get a request for the service fund. They didn't communicate effectively with our office and they provided an interpreter for this event. It was a not a doctor, what do you call it? A small clinic that can't afford to pay for an interpreter. And we said, we can't reimburse you, this person isn't licensed in Wisconsin, so we're not gonna be paying you back. Interpreters need a license to be compensated. I know it's gray, and Pam is right. Let's say it's a family member, and a family member wants to interpret on a volunteer basis for their family member. Well, of course, we don't encourage that, but we know that it happens. And a doctor might not fully understand or fully advocate for that. Are they at fault because, you know, this family member isn't being compensated, who's acting in the role of the interpreter? We know that you should have a license to interpret in a healthcare setting, so our job here is to educate and consult that that's not ideal. You want someone licensed to be providing the interpretation in this setting, but it happens.
Again, I want to clarify, if I don't have a license and I receive compensation, can anything happen to me? Yeah, that's all.
No. No.
That would be called.
If you want to get paid, get a license.
One moment.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. Okay. Let me clarify. Sorry, I misunderstood. There can be, but what kind of consequence, we don't know. We know the law states you need a license to be compensated. If you don't have a license and you get compensation for your work and you don't give a crap about what the law says and you're just patting your own pockets, you're breaking the law. There is disciplinary action that can happen with DSPS. I don't know what that looks like. You would have to ask DSPS.
Thank you. That's easy.
I am so sorry I misunderstood the question.
That was an
Okay,
interpreter, sorry.
and I see a couple more hands.
Just to clarify, I'm looking at the law right now, and under penalty, any person, it's disciplinary, or no, penalty, which is gonna be section 9 of the sign language interpreter law. Says a person who violates this section or any rule promulgated under this section may be fined not more than $200 or imprisoned for not more than 6 months or both. So that is the penalty if you interpret and collect money without a DSPS license.
I have sought counsel from Slick to ask about that. That has been interpreted different ways. And so I'm just sharing with you that that has been shared with us. If they don't have a license, there's not much that can be done. So that's something that this task force will have to investigate and get clarification on, because that is one of those things that are out there that people are confused about. I just want to give Dan a chance to respond. Okay?
I'm good. Yep.
I'm going to give 3 more questions, But I want to give people a chance who did not ask a question.
I saw Denise Johnson had her hand up. Just for clarity's sake, I saw Denise, and then I saw someone on my left-hand side, and then someone who's wearing stripes. So first, second, and then third. Is that acceptable, Pam? You said three, and that's it?
People who have not yet asked questions. So first we have Denise. All right, so what I understand about DSPS is that they can't do anything about those who do not have license. Like, for example, a Milwaukee interpreter who happened to interpret and gotten compensated for it. They broke the law, if I'm correct in saying that. So who is then,
One moment for the interpretation.
I think I understand the question. I think I can restate it if that would be helpful. Dancing. Mike's gonna repeat the question.
so the DSPS can penalize, or does the interpreter have to identify as a licensed interpreter to be able to do that? And just to clarify, they do focus on those who are already licensed, but now we are mentioning that they do focus on unlicensed individuals as well. So I'm just confused. I want to clarify what is within their scope.
Sorry for the confusion. DSPS, for enforcement purposes, looks at interpreters who hold a license. So if you violate the code of ethics, if a grievance is filed against you, if you are in error somehow, they are the body that will go after you. Also, in the state law, it says that interpreters who aren't licensed, those individuals should not be compensated. We acknowledge, though, that the law is weak in this area. It doesn't have a strong mechanism or a system in place to catch those individuals without licenses that are collecting compensation. There's no teeth here in this part of the law. You would have to go to DOJ possibly to go after those folks without a license. You are right. Does that help? Everybody clear? Okay. Okay, yes, you next on the blue.
So this is Warren. So if an interpreter is even compensated even 1 penny, does that fall under the scope of the law? Where would that section state that? Because if it doesn't specifically say what compensation means, why have the licensure then?
And I'm sorry, Mike, you were
And
blocking
if
my
nobody
sight
tells
line.
us.
I didn't see the question. Can you repeat it, Warren?
So if they don't have a license, they can't get paid.
The point of the law is that if you don't have a license, you should not be compensated, period. That's what the law says.
Nothing, really? I guess I'm still a little confused because why would they hire them in the first place then?
That's the issue, right? We want qualified licensed individuals to do a job. That's why they are paid. If you are taken on and without a license and you do the work anyway, eek! Lots of stuff can go wrong.
So we just have a weak system here.
And that's why we're all here working together, right? We want good, qualified people doing this work in the state of Wisconsin. That way, interpreters who have done the work and have the license get the recognition and the compensation they deserve, and the deaf and hard of hearing communities are protected and get the quality service that they hope to expect.
I would like to ask members of the task force, do you have any questions, anything that you need clarified for Dan? I get to relieve him of his duties. No? Terry? Terry does. Okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, this is Terry. I have a question, just a moment. I understand that whoever does the work must be paid if they're licensed. But people who go ahead and break that understanding, it screws the law, it screws the deaf people, it screws a lot of us. I don't know if there's a way, it puts providers too in a really awkward position of who they can provide, and people take advantage of that, and that's where the problems come from, is that system itself. Because, you know, the law is clear. You have a license, you can interpret and get compensated. But people take advantage of the system because no one's monitoring them. There's no accountability, there's no enforcement, and we're stuck as a community. We can't do anything. It screws us big time.
I acknowledge your comment, and a lot of the folks in attendance are nodding their head that they agree with you, and we are working together. We know that this is an issue. We know that we want licensed interpreters who can do the job and get paid properly for their service, and that people who don't have a license either make steps towards getting a license or don't bother interpreting at all. We know enforcement is a weakness in the system, and it's tough to really tighten that up. But again, I'm here to talk about the BEI and its administrative, how ODHH will take over administering it and to replace the WIDA. What you're discussing, we know the community needs to get behind this as an issue, but that enforcement piece would fall under DSPS.
Thank you.
I did want to add additionally that our staff, our deaf and hard of hearing specialists do speak to this. Providers, businesses, organizations, nonprofits, we say to them, you need a licensed interpreter. We do emphasize that when we make our referrals or people call us for information's sake. We do know some of our staff will follow up with places and say, you know, make sure it's a licensed person. This is how you can find out if who you want to hire has a license. But for the most part, licensed interpreters are provided. Not all hope is lost. There are a lot of licensed interpreters that are out there that providers do search out and get. Okay. Good, Pam?
Yep. So I think, to speak to Terry's point, I mean, that's why we have a subcommittee on enforcement, right? And so, yes, the law states this. We just need better policing of what's happening out in our community. And that's something that this task force is working towards. All right. On that, sure, Angie has one question.
Just one quick question. Going forward, this is for Dan. I'm just wondering, going forward, ODHH's progress with the BEI, I'm wondering how they will communicate that with either us, the task force, or us, the public, as in the deaf and hard of hearing and interpreting community.
Thank you for the question. Once we get the green light to move forward with implementation, we will have to work with DHS. It's a communication protocol systemically that we have. Then after that, our staff will figure out what's going on with the Bureau, talk to Pam, then talk to the community. We will have town hall meetings Again, the timeline, we don't have definitive, we're just, I mean, ASAP, we're hoping this fall, which would be great. And then things will start rolling from there and get more feedback from the community. Again, we don't know what that's gonna all look like yet, but what I do know is that the content is there. The BEI has it, we're hoping to adopt it in Wisconsin. And we expect and we want community involvement in that process. Okay?
Okay, Dan, thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time and providing us this information, very helpful to what we are gonna be doing with the task force this summer. I am gonna pass around note cards again. If there are lingering questions that you have for Dan, we will collect those and I'll pass it all along to ODHH and to Dan. And maybe there can be some follow-up if needed. Again, as ODHH has stated, there's still a lot of unknowns at this point. And as soon as they know, they're going to share that with us. Okay.
Yes.
So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, which I know means like 10:15, but 5, try to stick to 5. And then we're gonna come back and work on the other questions.
And actually,
Go ahead.
I wanted to thank everyone for allowing me to come again and answer some of your questions and talk about ODHH and what the BEI might look like. I really appreciate your attention. I know I didn't answer everything. I know you're concerned. I hear your frustrations. I understand. It's just part of the process. We appreciate your support. If you do have concerns, please feel free to communicate either to Pam or to my office. We want to work with you. Oh, there's one more question, Pam.
If I
Is that
can
okay?
make a quick comment before we go on break. I want to remind people that before people can take the skills test, they first must take and pass the test of English proficiency. And I think that it's much more rigorous than many people may assume. To that end, I brought 25 copies of the sample test if you're interested in having a copy or seeing a copy. See me during break.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Take care, Terry. Thanks for your time and thanks for your good questions. Have a good one. You bet. All right.
Margaret, Terry would like